We're here with Mr. Leonard Eisenberg, the originator of perdaily.com, P-E-R daily, D-A-I-L-Y.com. Stands for Public Education Reform. And I'm your humble interviewer, Frank Ariano. Today we wanted to talk about the LA Unified School District recently rolled back on some of its requirements. I understand that before, to graduate, a student needed 230 units. There's a new proposal. I understand DZ wanted it rolled back to 180 units. I think Warren Fletcher called that the incredible shrinking diploma. What can you tell me about these district magicians?
Well, the ultimate compromise was 210 units. But what is going on is they're having a discussion about lawn tennis on the Titanic, and the ship is sinking. Whether you have 230 units, 210 units, which was the ultimate compromise, or 180 units, it's not so much as a question of quantity, but quality. What are the quality of the units that they're taking? If you look at a school like Roosevelt High School, only 10% of the kids graduating from that school have the A through G requirements. So for the board, at the behest of DZ, to require that all students have the A through G requirements, that's mandating something without the ability for it to take place, when the district clearly is unable to do this. Now, the question is why? And the reason why is because kids have been socially promoted without foundational skills. This is nowhere in their discussion. In other words, they're saying all students, and I agree with this, motherhood and apple pie are really great. But the point is, if you're going to say all students should have A through G requirements that will get them into college, you've got to give them the foundational skills necessary in English and mathematics in order to do work in those courses. That is not discussed.
Now, I understand that this is a plan that they want to implement in the year 2016. And part of it is that they're going to be demanding that students take rigorous college prep courses. How are they going to be able to do that if they don't have the foundational skills?
They're not. And this is basically one of the things that is the most egregious about this racist system, is that children are made to feel bad about themselves. They're made to feel that there is something wrong with them, when what I would like to do with the students at LAUSD is take them aside and say, son, young lady, you never had a chance from the beginning, because they pushed you through elementary school without the grade level standards you needed. Any teacher who's been in this system for a long time would tell you there's nothing wrong with the Los Angeles Unified School District as it is meant to function. Any teacher at a grade level will tell you these are the standards that are supposed to be learned at that grade level. If those kids learn those standards in elementary school, by the time they get to middle school, or maybe even before, because we're dealing with potentially very bright children, those kids would be able to take college preparatory courses. But they're not only not mastering those skills, they are socially promoted into the next grade without the prior grade skills, which sets them up in this situation where they think there's something wrong with them. I can't do this. Teacher's asking me to do something. I can't do it, and they can't do it because they don't have the foundational skills. This was not part of the discussion. The only tangential way they got into the discussion is they said, well, we need to give support. This is, support is not going to hack it. What has got to happen is there has to be a fundamental change in the way LAUSD's model of education, not in terms of what it requires, but how it's implemented. You've got to be able to get people in there, and as soon as you identify deficits in a student, the earlier you get to those deficits, the more capable those kids will be of taking college preparatory courses.
Now, my understanding is that the LAUSD, as part of this plan, wants to provide some kind of instructional support to third graders, sixth graders, and eighth graders. What can you tell me about that?
Well, the thing is, as I said, if you just allowed the school system to function the way it did when I went to school in the 50s and 60s, you wouldn't have to do that. I agree with the notion that third, sixth, in other grades, it's important to give instructional support. But if you talk to people who are experts on education, they will tell you that by the time a kid gets to the 3rd grade or the 6th grade especially, the die is cast. It is year by year, the older a child gets, the harder it is to go back and make up deficits. It becomes much harder. Why do that? Why not do an analysis of the child when they first get to school in kindergarten or pre-kindergarten? Why not work with women when they're pregnant, make sure that they eat well, make sure that the kids are exposed to things long before they get to school? We know that kids on the West Side do very well at the Brentwood Academy when they're sitting in classrooms of 15 kids. The only reason why these kids are doing better is because they're getting treated better. If you treat kids in the inner city the same way you treat kids on the West Side, those kids will do well. This is logical. What stops people from coming to this logical conclusion is the racist assumption that Black and Latino children somehow are not going to be able to compete with more affluent children. This is ridiculous. The school system is set up for these kids to fail. What has been proposed is nothing that will change that failed model unless you deal with the underlying skills necessary to allow these kids to succeed.
Now, LAUSD board member Lamont, she's quoted as saying, quote, I said no in 2005 because we didn't have a plan. I'm going to say no today because we don't have a plan. What kind of administration does things like this?
Well, I must take my hat off to Miss Lamont because I think she's the only one that's had the guts to say there's an 850-pound gorilla in the room and you're not dealing with the gorilla. And you didn't deal with it in 2005 and you're not dealing with it now. It's very politically popular to say everybody's going to college. But the total capacity of all colleges and universities in the United States is 30% of high school graduates. So somebody's blowing smoke here. And why are they blowing smoke? They're setting up a system where they're going to be with their fingers pointing and saying, DZ said, well, we voted for this and we voted that everybody. There's a big difference between sitting on top of the Beaudry building and mandating and getting down in the trenches and giving the teachers and the students what they need in order to accomplish it. And ironically, it isn't about money. It's about honesty. It's about identifying what the problems are in a timely manner. Because where money comes in is, God help us as a society if we ignore what the needs of children are when they need them. When kids get through this system without having their needs dealt with, they wind up in a juvenile justice system where it's going to cost us $78,000 a year to deal with them. Why not deal with them for far less money, give kids the ability to become productive members of a society, to become educated, and then they become taxpayers and not burdens on the rest of society, and they make all of us proud. And as somebody who's getting older as he's sitting here, these are the people who are going to take care of me when I'm old.
Well, as you see, what Derek Bach has said in the past, that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. We've had a wonderful conversation. We're going to continue to have these conversations on public education reform. Please make sure you check out perdaily.com. Thank you very much.
And if you have something to say, and if you'd like to join us, if you agree with us or disagree with us, that's fine. That's the democratic process. There has to be a dialogue. You don't mandate education from the Beaudry building. You sit around and you talk about best practices and how to implement them. Thanks.
Like Jose Marti said, what we want for our town is what we want for our children.